好，各位这个参与者，大家早上好啊！这大部分的同事们应该，朋友们应该都是在中国，在国内。我们今天安排的这个科洛杰律师呢，是我们博盛综合的移民部门的负责人啊，也是我们的合伙人。那他是一名非常资深的移民律师，他在美国的这个包括在立法工作当中，包括在各个这个法律的期刊啊、报章、媒体、杂志都有很多的作品。那我们今天呢，邀请他给各位做的是一个比较概要的这个美国相关的签证，移民签证的一个介绍。可能更多的重头戏是大家我在邀请的过程当中，大家都有问我的，就是美国政策的走向啊。那这个我们会等到他把这个简要的这个介绍做完了之后呢，我们会请他做分享。所以呢，今天呢，我们用的是这个 Zoom Webinar。那各位呢，在这个功能方面呢，可以看到，就是如果你们有问题的话，你们可以透过文字提问，或者是如果你们想要举手、想要发言啊，这些我们都可以去实现。那大家如果有什么问题的话，都可以尽量提出。我们今天跟那个克洛杰律师约的时间是大约1个小时，所以大家都可以把握好机会。最后我再说2句，第一个就是今天我们所邀请的朋友们呢，都是对于移民相关的这个业务有兴趣的朋友啊，不管是国内的律所啊，或者是这个第三方的合作商啊，所以这个是大家都是有一点对这个业务上是有兴趣的。第二个呢，就是还是希望跟大家再说一句，就是虽然我们今天做的这个介绍呢，是一个基础的介绍，但是每一个移民的需求的案子都是不一样的，都是需要审慎的评估，然后需要克洛杰律师跟他的团队去好好看一下，就是各个候选人他的这个具体状况，我们才来判断。所以呢，今天如果他有举到的例子，或者是他有分享到的案例呢，请各位不要把它当成一个模板，然后就当成说是一个完整的法律意见。回头如果有需要的话呢，我们可以替客户做这个评估跟把关。好，那我后面呢，我就把时间交给这个克洛杰律师。Hi, Matthew.
Hi.
All right, so I just briefly gave an intro about your practice, and I told everyone that we are all interested in immigration practice. It's either partners, law firms in China, and today's main issue is to give an overview of what types of visas or what kind of immigration solutions that we can provide to potential candidates. But the most important issue that people are actually very interested is the broader policy, right? So because with the current administration, I think a lot of people just really wants to know how do we move forward from here. So I told everybody that we're going to leave that to Q&A, so you can go ahead and start your presentation.
Fantastic. Well, thank you very much, Sam. I'll start by describing the immigration agencies in the United States. I help foreign companies, foreign workers, foreign students get visas in the United States, work permits, and green cards, a lawful permanent residence in the United States, based on many different factors, okay? There are 3 agencies that are involved with approving immigration petitions, immigration applications in the United States. The main agency is the Department of Homeland Security, or DHS, and the main immigration agency is part of DHS. That's the U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services, USCIS. That is the agency that processes visa petitions, okay, applications for immigration status in the United States. They handle applications for all types of visas, okay, and that's the main agency that adjudicates immigration applications. Applications for visas, for work permits, for green cards, for naturalization, for getting U.S. citizenship, okay? That's probably the most important immigration agency in the United States. The second most important is probably Customs and Border Protection, CBP, though that is the agency that guards the borders, okay? They are the people who check your visa when you come into the United States. They're called Customs and Border Protection. So they will actually check your visa when you enter the United States at an airport or at a border entry point, all right? And then lastly, the third agency that's part of the Department of Homeland Security is Immigration and Customs Enforcement. They are the department that actually deports people. In other words, if you violate your visa, okay, or if you commit a crime, okay, they will deport you or remove you from the United States. There are other types of agencies as well that are involved in immigration. There is the Department of State, okay, which is the agency that runs the consulates and embassies abroad. Those consulates and embassies issue visas in the passports, okay? They don't always adjudicate the application for the immigration benefit, okay? But they issue the visa in the passport that you get in the passport that allows you to enter the United States. Okay, so they're a very important agency as well. And then thirdly, there's the Department of Labor. The Department of Labor is involved in certain types of immigrant visa applications, visas that lead to green cards. Certain types of immigrant visa applications that lead to green cards involve the Department of Labor, which determines whether there's a shortage of workers in that area or in that particular position in the United States. And therefore they give their permission to allow that type of worker to enter the United States to take that particular job. So that's the job of the Department of Labor. All right, so those are the main agencies. Let's move on to the next slide and I'll describe a couple important immigration concepts. There are two main types of visas. There's the non-immigrant visa or non-permanent visa status, okay? Most visas are non-immigrant. Those are most work visas like H1b Visas, okay? Those are extraordinary ability visas, for example, for temporary employment, okay? And also student visas are non-immigrant visas. They are temporary visas, okay? They don't lead to permanent residence in the United States. They don't lead to a green card or to US citizenship. So those are non-immigrant visas. And the other type of visa, other main type, is the immigrant visa. That's the visa that leads to permanent residence, that gets you a green card, that allows you to stay in the United States permanently and eventually apply for citizenship if you would like, all right? Now, when you apply for a immigration benefit, you apply usually with USCIS, U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services. They approve the petition, the application. They give you a approval notice, okay, when it's approved, and then you go to the consulate abroad and you get a visa stamp. And that is what we have on this slide. This is a B1, B2 visitor visa stamp that you received from the consulate, okay? And that is what allows you to enter the United States, that visa stamp in your passport, okay? But this is not, the visa stamp does not give you a particular duration of status in the United States, okay? For example, this visa, this B1, B2 visa was valid until 2014, okay? But just because this person entered with this visa did not mean that they could stay until 2014, okay? That expiration date just means that that is the date when this particular visa stamp can't be used to enter the United States, okay? The duration of the stay in the United States is determined by the I-94 card or Form I-94 that you receive when you enter the United States. You will receive an electronic I-94 card with an expiration date that will tell you when your visitor visa, in this case B1, B2 visa that we have in the lower right of the screen, the I-94 card will tell you when the duration of your stay in the United States will expire, okay? And actually, the Customs and Border Protection official can tell you, can give you a different, a different, duration of stay than you're expecting. So every time you enter the United States, you should always check your I-94 expiration date. You have to download that from a website to see when your status expires. Okay, so those are some of the main concepts of immigration in the United States. All right, immigrant visa, non-immigrant visa, okay, and the visa stamp. Now let's move on to the next one. All right, so let's talk about non-immigrant visas first, or temporary quote-unquote visas. Most of these visas only last for a certain amount of time, okay? The first most common type of visa is non-immigrant visa is the visitor visa or B1, B2 visa. This usually only lasts 6 months, okay? Most people who get a B1, B2 visa only get a 6-month duration for their B1, B2 visa, okay? Now, other common types of immigrant visas are student visas, for example. Student visas can last much longer. In fact, people can stay in the United States for years with student visas, but they can't get a green card based on the fact that they're students. Okay, they can't become residents. They cannot have the intent to stay in the United States permanently when they enter with a student visa. Okay, and a student can't work. Okay, a student can't work unless they get a work permit. Certain students can get work permits. They can apply for work permits. They can apply to work in the United States using what's usually called optional practical training, depending on their program, their studies. They can usually get work authorization to work in the United States using OPT or optional practical training, but they have to apply specially for that work authorization. All right, some of the most common work visas are the H1b visas. The H1b visa is the most common specialized skilled worker visa. A lot of students, after they graduate, apply for an H1b visa to work for an employer in the United States if they have at least a bachelor's degree that's related to their job. Okay, that's required for their job. An H1b visa is a temporary work visa for people who have at least a bachelor's degree in a specialized field. Okay, that's one of the most common visas. And when people say they want to come to the United States and work, they usually apply for an H1b visa. Other types of temporary non-immigrant work visas are the L1 intercompany transfer visa. This is for employees of foreign companies that are being transferred to a branch of the company in the United States. It could be a new branch or an existing branch or office or subsidiary or affiliate of the international company in the United States. That's also a very popular visa, but is also temporary. Other types of visas are the E2 investor visa. Okay, that's a very good visa. That's for people who are from certain countries. Only certain countries are eligible for the E2 treaty investor visa. They can get a visa to come to the US to work for a company that they have invested in, or that investors from that particular country have invested in the United States. It's a very helpful visa. Other types of common visas are E3 specialty worker visas for Australians. It's only for Australians. Okay, it's similar to an H1B. There's a TN specialty worker visa, also similar to the H1B. It's only for Canadians and Mexicans. And then there's the O1 extraordinary ability visa, which is very popular for individuals of extraordinary ability who have shown that they have succeeded in their field, that they're one of the best people in their field. That's a very popular visa, and I'll talk about that later. Okay, we can, those are the most, that's a summary of the most common work visas that we have helped people with. These are non-immigrant visas, but they do not lead automatically to permanent residence or a green card. All right, and some of these visas do allow the worker to bring their family members with them. Usually they cannot work, but For example, the spouses of H1b workers usually cannot work, okay, unless unless they've applied for a green card usually, okay. But for certain visa types like L visas and E2 visas, the spouses can apply for work authorization. So you can, that's very helpful for some non-immigrants that have E2 and L visas. All right, let's move on to the next slide so we can talk about green cards, okay? A lot of people who come to the United States to work, okay, eventually would like to stay permanently, okay? And as I said before, most non-immigrant visas are limited to a certain amount of time. For example, H1b visas only last 6 years, okay? So if you want to stay longer than 6 years and you're on an H1b visa, you need to apply for a green card. Now, there are two main ways to get permanent residence in the United States. The first way is through family relationships, okay? Through a relationship with a close family member who is usually a US citizen or at least a permanent resident. And the other main way is through employment, okay? Is through employment, through special qualifications to work in the United States, okay? Let's talk about family immigration. First, the best way to immigrate to the United States based on a family relationship is to be what's called an immediate relative, okay? Immediate relatives are close family members of US citizens, and they can enter the United States, they can apply to enter the United States immediately. They can get a green card immediately. There's no wait, there's no backlog for immediate relatives of US citizens. Now, the most common way to immigrate as an immediate relative is to marry a US citizen, okay? That's the most common way, all right? And there's no wait. There is no backlog for this category for any nationality. There's no wait for Chinese nationals. There's no wait for Indian nationals, okay? The spouses of US citizens can apply to enter the United States right away. Now, there are processing times that may extend for a year or more, okay? But that's just the processing of the visa application. There is no backlog in the category of immediate relatives, okay? Other types of family relationships qualify as immediate relatives as well. Parents of adult US citizens and minor children of US citizens. Those are also immediate relative categories through which foreign nationals can get green cards. There are other family-based categories as well, such as adult children of US citizens, for example, spouses of permanent residents, adult children of permanent residents, okay, married adult children of US citizens, and siblings of US citizens. But there are backlogs for these categories, and the backlogs are much longer for certain nationalities, such as Chinese nationals and Indian nationals in particular, as well as Mexicans and some other nationalities, okay? So those categories are much slower. There's a long backlog for many of those categories. And for certain categories, the backlog may be 10 years or longer, all right? So, but those are the main categories of family-based immigration, all right? Let's move on to employment-based immigration, and that's what I help people with. Let's not go to the next slide yet. I still am on this slide. So I'm talking about immigration through employment now, all right? And at GLR Group, we spend a lot of our clients are applying for visas, green cards, permanent residence through employment, okay? Either because they have been hired or work for an international company that wants them to come work in the US, okay? Or they have special skills that qualify them to work in the US, all right? And these categories are EB1, EB2, and EB3, employment-based EB1, and employment-based EB2, and employment-based EB3. There's also EB5 here, which people may be familiar with. That's the green card through investment. I'll talk about that briefly as well. But one of the most popular categories is the EB1A category. That's that is the category for green cards through extraordinary ability. It's a very challenging category. You do have to show that you're at the very top of your field, that you have won awards in your field, that you have received media attention in your field. Okay, it's very challenging. You have to provide a lot of documentation of your success, all right? But one of the good things about this category is that you do not have to have a U.S. employer, okay, sponsor you to apply for this category. You do not have to have a U.S. employer, all right? So you can apply for this category on your own, all right? All right, but it is a challenging category. There's not a long wait for this category. The EB1 category is relatively fast. For certain nationalities, however, there is a backlog, okay, but it generally is a quick category. There isn't as long a wait for this category. EB1C is for foreign executives and managers that work for an international company abroad and who are being brought to the United States to work in the U.S. permanently for a branch or subsidiary or affiliate of that company in the United States. That's also a very good category, and there isn't a long wait for that category either. EB2 is for foreign workers with advanced degrees or for national interest waivers, okay? For EB2, for the EB2 category for foreign workers with advanced degrees, you must first file an application with the Department of Labor, which is called a labor certification or PERM application, and show that there aren't enough U.S. workers qualified to do that job in the United States, okay? So that's an additional step in the process, okay? And you do have to have an employer sponsor you for that green card, okay, in the EB2 advanced degree category, okay? And they have to perform recruitment and show that there aren't U.S. workers who are qualified for the job for the EB2 category for foreign workers with advanced degrees. Now, the national interest waiver category in the EB2 category allows you to waive the employment requirement, the job offer requirement, okay, but you have to show that your immigration to the United States is in the national interest at a national level, all right? And that's very, very similar to the qualifications for EB1A, extraordinary ability, okay? In order to show that your immigration to the United States is in the national interest at the national level, you usually have to show that you are extraordinarily talented. So the criteria for the national interest waiver and for the EB1A are very similar. All right. Then EB3 is for foreign workers with bachelor's degrees. All right. And this also requires the Department of Labor to agree that there aren't enough U.S. workers that are qualified for the position in the United States, okay? And recruitment must be done to show that, okay? And then a labor certification is filed, a labor certification or PERM is filed with the Department of Labor first, and that has to be approved by the Department of Labor before the foreign worker can get a green card in the EB3 category as well, all right? So those are the main employment-based categories. There's also the Eb5 category, which I mentioned briefly. That's based on investment, okay? It used to be $500,000 and now it's almost $1 million, okay? That's a category that has an extensive backlog, however, for Chinese nationals in particular, okay? But the main criteria for that category is investments, all right? So that is a quick overview of most of the immigrant visa categories based on family and based on employment, all right? So let's move on to the next slide to look at some examples of visas that we've obtained for clients. Like I said, we mostly help clients get employment-based visas and green cards. We also help clients with family-based green cards as well, okay? But a large part of our practice is visas based on employment or qualifications that foreign nationals have for work. For example, we've gotten O1 visas for a wide variety of clients, including fashion photographers. In this particular case, this fashion photographer was young, okay, had won awards for a film, actually. But we argued that this applicant was primarily a photographer, Okay, we had to pick a category. She had published in Vogue Italia, but we didn't have good evidence of that. All right, her photos were on the Vogue website, but they weren't credited. So we had to provide extra evidence proving that those photographs were hers. We had to provide contracts showing that those photographs were hers, and correspondence with Vogue Italia showing that those photographs were hers. Okay, she had won an award at a film festival, but we had to explain what the importance of that award was. It wasn't an Academy Award. It wasn't a universally known award. So we had to provide a lot of evidence showing why that award was important. And we also had to show evidence of other work that she had done that was important, such as photography for the Victoria's Secret fashion show. Okay, but again, we had to prove that she had done work at the Victoria's Secret fashion show, okay, because that she wasn't credited in any of the official programs, okay? So it's very important to provide documentary evidence of the success of the applicant for the O1 visa, and it's important to get recommendation letters from very important people in the field. Both for O1 visas and EB1A immigrant visas, it's very important to get letters from top people in the field saying that the applicant for the visa is truly extraordinary. So a lot of documentation is required, and we were successful in obtaining this particular visa, this O1 visa. All right, let's move on to the next example. Okay, this is a fashion photographer as well. All right, this person had used another lawyer. All right, but this person didn't think that the other lawyer had done a good job. All right, the letters that the other lawyer had provided had helped him draft were very vague about his achievements. Okay, this particular applicant had done a lot of work while he was in school. Okay, but achievements while a person is a student are often discounted by the Immigration Service. Okay, because to get an O1 visa or an EB1A, extraordinary ability visa, you have to have already become one of the best people in your field, okay? You have to be a leader in your field already. If you're still a student, the Immigration Service is gonna think, well, you can't be extraordinary yet, okay? You're still a student, you're still learning. Okay, so we rewrote the letters and we explained, look, this work that he had done, even though he was still in school, okay, or may have been related to his schoolwork, was truly extraordinary and had attracted attention, media attention, etc. Okay, and we got letters explaining why the work was truly extraordinary, even though he was still a student. And we provided extensive documentation of the recognition he had received, okay? The media articles, the newspaper articles, the reviews of his work that were on the internet, okay? And we also applied for a peer group recommendation letter, which is very important when you apply for an O1 visa, okay? When you apply for an O1 visa, you usually have to provide a peer group recommendation letter from usually a union, a labor union in the area in which the foreign national works. All right, and this is very important. And the previous lawyer had not obtained that letter. The previous lawyer had said that there wasn't a relevant labor union, okay, but the Immigration Service disagreed and requested that peer group recommendation letter. We found not one, but two appropriate labor unions and got recommendation letters from them. And we did get the O1 visa approved. Okay, so this is another case where we had to put extra effort into documenting the achievements of the applicant, okay, objective documentation such as media attention, okay, contracts with important clients, and things like that to show the extraordinary ability. All right, so these are some of the examples of approval notices for O1 visas. This is the temporary non-immigrant visa. An O1 visa is a great visa. It lasts for, the first approval is for 3 years, and then it can continue to be extended for an unlimited amount of time, okay? but it is not a permanent visa. It does not get you a green card. So this is one of these approvals, okay, that we've received. We've gotten many types of approvals for many types of different professionals, such as chefs working at top restaurants, bartenders. Even we got an O1 visa for a bartender. The bartender, she had won bartending competitions throughout the world. Okay, and we were able to get her an O1 visa for a very fancy restaurant in the United States. And we got an O1 for film producers, for visual effects studios. Okay, and we've gotten green cards, EB1A green cards, for many different types of categories of employees, such as cardiologists, physicians, researchers. Okay, in this particular case, this is an example of a cardiologist and physician who was very prominent in China, who had written textbooks in China about cardiology, about heart disease, and we could show that he had impacted the practice of medicine in China very profoundly, and that he was needed in the United States to work for hospitals in the United States, and therefore he qualified for the EB1A Extraordinary Ability Green Card. All right, so let's move on. These are some of the examples. This is one of the approvals for an O1. We already showed you that. We can keep on moving. Okay, these are just more approvals for O1s. And we have had a very good approval rate in the last several years, even though approval rates have been declining. Denials have been increasing. And I understand that many of you must have a lot of questions about the current administration's policies, immigration policies, and what's going to happen in the future. Well, H1b denials are increasing. L1 denials are increasing. O1 denials are, interestingly, O1 denials are remaining relatively flat. Okay, so that's a very interesting thing. H1b visas are not well viewed, are heavily criticized by this administration. Okay, Trump does not like H1b visas. All right, so H1b visas have been getting denied more and more. Our approval rate is quite high. Okay, is very high, but we have to work very hard on getting H1b visas approved. Okay, and if Trump is elected next year, okay, if he's elected this fall and starts his second term next year, then denials will probably continue to go up. Okay, and in fact, he might change the criteria for H1b visas and limit the number of H1b visas if he is reelected. All right, let's move on to the next one. Okay, I think that's it for me then. And if you have questions about immigration policy and changes that Trump is making, okay, I can answer your questions at the end.
Okay, thanks, Matthew. I think we are waiting for Sam to be online again. I think he is offline now. Yeah, just give him a few seconds. And thanks for the presentation.
Sure. Well, I can talk a little bit about the what's going on with the Trump administration right now. Trump is considering issuing another immigration ban. Okay, because he says that foreign workers are preventing Americans from getting jobs. Okay, because unemployment is going up in the United States. All right, and he says that that's the fault of immigrants. Okay, all right. So he is contemplating on issuing another immigration ban, and in particular, he may suspend the entrance of new H1b visa workers or L visa workers. Okay, you know, I think his ability to do that is limited at this time, but he may temporarily suspend the entry of new H1b workers, L1 workers, but I don't think he can affect the extension of those visas for people who are already in the United States. He is also considering changing or eliminating work authorization for students. Okay, we don't know what he's going to do yet. Okay, we're going to have to see what he's going to do. So often however, he will make a dramatic announcement, and then he doesn't make as significant of a change as we thought in reality. Okay, right now we're in the middle of a re-election campaign. Okay, he's campaigning for re-election, so he's talking tough about immigration. All right, we have to keep that in mind. Okay, Sam online again, or
yeah, I think he has some connecting issues, but let me or Maggie just do a very brief translation of what you said just now, as there is no PowerPoint for them to see right now.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, Maggie, 可以听到我吗？
可以听到，我刚才听到。
OK， 好的，行，那我就再介绍一下，我们现在要帮我们进行翻译的是我们事务所的王律师，所以的话 ，Maggie 可以就刚刚Matthew 律师做的一段关于我们这个 Trump 总统的一个最新的举措做一个翻译。
刚才 Matthew 跟大家说了一下，因为大家可能都有听说，特朗普他最近有意图说要通过一个新的移民，一个总统的 executive order。他说他现在呢有可能，因为呼声很高嘛，美国国内有失业率也在不停的上升，然后有很多议员啊，包括川普都认为是因为外国人take 了很多本地人应该有的工作机会。所以川普的意思就是说，他现在要禁止一部分外国人来美国，然后我们现在分析出来的呢，他有可能会说的就是暂时，禁止刚刚抽到 H1b 的人，或者是有 L1 的人，就是刚刚拿到这些签证的人进入美国。但是我们也知道，现在美国的大使馆在全球的大使馆本身也没有开门。所以他的这个禁令其实是一个重复的禁令，不然他们也没有办法得到新的签证。但是已经在美国境内的已经有 L 签证和 H 签证的人，科洛杰律师觉得他不太可能，川普不太可能，能够阻止这些人延长他们已经有的身份。然后川普还有一个想法是，他有可能会禁止以学生签证的身份来工作。至于这一条禁令到底会不会作为一条executive order 说出来，也是一个未知数。因为我们现在是处于他的大选年，所以他说的很多的这些言论呢，其实是为了自己的选举造势。所以最后出来的政策如何，我们还是要拭目以待。
好的，谢谢 Maggie。Sam 似乎现在可以上线了，但是in case 就是 Sam 那边还有一些个连接的问题，所以的话，我这边可以先帮 Sam 去提一些我们事先收交的这个问题。我会用英文来提问，这样请 Maggie 可以帮我们就是做一下这个给咱们今天在听的participant 参与者一个翻译。然后这里我也想再次鼓励一下大家，如果有问题的话，可以不用客气，通过这个聊天的功能或者是 Q&A 的这个在上方的这个功能，来把问题发过来给我们。因为我们今天的话是想给大家一个机会，能够跟我们所的这个合伙人有一个直接的交流，所以的话大家可以不用客气，也不用害羞，把这个问题发过来。那我们就现在开始大概过一下关于我们提前收交一些问题。Okay, so Matthew, we have some questions collected from the audience from earlier. I'll just let's start with the easy ones. Okay, so the first question is about L1. I know that we did many L1 cases before. So many people are wondering what is the easiest way, or whether there are any special ways they can get their L1 approved easier or easily.
Okay. Well, an L1 visa is for a worker that has worked for a foreign company for at least a year, either as an executive or manager or in a highly specialized position, okay? Highly specialized. We have done mostly what's called L1A cases, which are for executives or managers that have worked for a foreign company who are coming to the US to work for an affiliate, okay, of that company in the US as a manager or executive. All right. Now, the main thing to think about, the main thing to concentrate on for an L1A visa is to show that the manager or executive has a high level and highly responsible managerial job. And that usually means that they have to show that they manage a significant team, a team of employees, both in the United States, both abroad, okay, and that they will also manage a significant team of employees in the United States, okay? That's not the only way to do it, okay? You can get an L1A visa for what's called a functional manager, somebody who manages a function of the company, but not a team, okay? Not subordinates, but that is much harder to show. That is much harder to show, okay? So when applying for an L1A visa for an executive or manager, it's usually helpful, it's usually very, very helpful to show that the employee manages a substantial team of subordinates, all right? Usually at least, you know, at least 4 or 5 people, preferably professionals, people who have a university education, all right? So that's the most important thing usually when applying for an L1A visa for executives or managers. And frankly, it's much easier if the company is larger, all right? A very small company will have more difficulty showing that they need an executive or manager or a highly, or even an L1B employee with highly specialized skills in the United States if they don't have a large operation. Okay, we found that the Immigration Service is very suspicious of small companies, okay, transferring people to the United States, okay? They will scrutinize those applications very closely.
Understood. Yeah,
we was successful getting those approved, but usually it's helpful for the company to be larger with a significant number of employees.
Understood. Maggie, you want to do translation?
Yeah, sure. 所以刚才的问题是说，我们现在有很多跨国的企业想要通过 L 签证，然后把自己的员工或者是高管申请签证，然后到美国来工作。然后我们的问题是关于 L 签证有哪些需要注意的地方，然后怎样能够帮助我们更容易的获得批准。然后科洛杰律师的回答呢，首先给大家介绍了一下 L 签证指的是什么，是说这个员工这个申请者他已经在同一个公司在美国之外的分支工作了至少1年，然后他的职位或者是一名高管，或者是一个技术上非常优秀的一个技术人员。如果是一名高管的话，他将获得的签证就是 L1A。如果他是一个技术上很优秀的技术人员，那么他的签证将是 L1B。首先一般来说，肯定是这个公司它的规模越大，越容易获得美国移民局的认可。如果公司的规模不够大的话，移民局有可能会认为你这个公司的目的只是为了建立跨国的这种分支，然后来把人通过这种签证的方式带到美国来。所以如果是高管想要获得 L1A 签证的时候，通常我们需要证明的是他是处于公司的高层管理。如何来证明这个？一个是通过证明他管理着一个比较大的团队，这个团队呢至少是4到5个专业人士构成，就本科以上的专业人士。然后他曾经有过经验管理过美国以外的团队，然后来美国之后呢，也将管理美国的这个团队。或者呢，如果他不能证明他在人数上管理一个团队，可以用来证明他管理着一个比较重要的功能分支，也是可以证明他是这个高管的位置。
Okay, thanks, Maggie. Yeah, so Matthew, I have 2 quick follow-up questions about an L1 visa. So the first one is, as you mentioned earlier, it has to be like a multinational company does the US company or the company in the US has to be in the same industry with the company overseas? That is the first follow-up question. And the second one, I think many people are they're curious, how can they apply for a green card, or whether it is possible for them to get a green card if they're using L1, or if they're planning to get a green card eventually. Is it possible for them to do so?
Okay, yes. Good questions. Well, the first question is whether the US company has to be in the same industry as the company abroad. Well, there's no legal requirement that the company in the US be in the same industry. There's no legal requirement. Now, if the company abroad is transferring the executive to the United States, or the specialized worker, if it's an L1B, okay, to the United States, it's because they need this expertise or managerial experience that that foreign worker has in the United States, okay? If the industry is completely different, okay, then it's going to be very strange for the foreign company to be transferring a worker, a highly skilled, either managerial worker or highly skilled specialized worker, to the United States to work in a completely different industry. All right. Mm-hmm. Now, we've gotten cases like that approved, okay, where the U.S. company worked in a different industry than the foreign company, okay, but we've shown that the executive in this particular case has gained managerial experience in the foreign country that is needed, okay, to manage the operation in the United States. And we've shown that the foreign company wants to diversify their business, okay, in the United States, and that this person that they're transferring to the United States has skills that are applicable and are needed in the United States, okay? So the answer is no. The company in the US does not have to be in the same industry, but you have to explain why the foreign worker who's applying for the L1A visa is needed in the US if the industry is different.
Mm-hmm. Okay, let's give Maggie some time to do the translation for this part.
谢谢。所以这个问题呢是，如果想通过 L 签证把一个公司的高管或者是高级技术人员，获得这个签证来到美国，那么美国和中国的这两家，这两个分支一定要在同一个业务范围一个领域中嘛？这个答案呢就是不需要。在法律上呢没有明确的规定说中国假如说是中国或其他国家与美国的这两家分支要在同一个业务领域，但是我们在实操的时候需要向移民局证明，说假如说是一名高管，他在美国之外的那个分支从事的管理业务，他的经验同样在他来到美国之后也是适用的，然后适用于技术人员也是他之前的那个技术，假如说在另外一个领域，如果他获得了这个签证进入美国之后，他的技术在美国也是可以应用的。这样如果是这样，所以说这两个分支如果不在同一个领域，我们在实操举证的时候，可能需要更多的列举一些证据，然后向移民局更全面的论证说这个是可行的。像我们之前曾经代理过的案子呢，就是他们就是在不同的领域，然后之前的那个高管因为他曾经进行过很多管理业务，所以我们就向移民局论证说虽然这两家分支他们的业务范畴不是完全一样，但是这是公司出于自己的战略上的考量，所以在美国呢想要开拓一些新的业务，然后我们证明了他在中国时候的管理经验呢同样适用于美国的这个不同的业务范畴，以后所以公司是需要他的这些管理能力的，然后我们获得了该案件的批准，所以说这个答案就是说不需要，这两家分支不需要在同一个业务范畴。
Okay, thanks, Maggie. Matthew, would you mind answering the second question I asked just now?
Sure. Okay. So the second question is about getting a green card when you've obtained an L1 visa to the United States. Okay, this is a very good question. If you have an L1A visa, then it's quite easy to get a green card in the Eb5 category that I mentioned earlier. When I say easy, I mean relatively easy. Okay, it still takes several years, usually. okay? But the EB1C immigrant visa category is for international executives or managers that have worked for a foreign company for at least a year in a managerial position and have come to the US or are coming to the US to work in a managerial position for an affiliate of that company, an affiliate or subsidiary. So the requirements for the EB1C immigrant category for international managers is very, very similar to the requirement for the L1A non-immigrant visa for international executives or managers, okay? So most L1A visa holders qualify for the EB1C immigrant visa category. So a lot of international executives do come to the US with an L1A visa. They've worked for the foreign company for at least a year in a managerial position. Okay, they get an L1A visa, they come to the US to work in a managerial or executive position. Perhaps they run the whole company even, all right? And then they can usually apply for an EB1C green card very quickly if they want to. An L1A visa lasts 7 years, okay? So it lasts a pretty long time, okay? But if they want to stay after 7 years, they usually have to apply for an EB1C green card. And like I said, the requirements for the EB1C international executive or manager green card are very similar to the L1A requirements. So yes, we say that an L1A visa transfers over to an EB1C green card rather quickly and it's a rather simple transition, relatively speaking. An L1B visa does not. So if you worked for a foreign company in a specialty or a highly specialized role, but it was not managerial, okay, and you come to the US to work for a subsidiary in a highly specialized role, okay, but not a managerial role, you do not qualify for the EB1C green card. Okay, so that's important to remember.
所以这个问题是，如果持 L 签证进入美国，有没有机会下一步进行绿卡申请？像我们刚才说 L1 它分为 L1A 和 L1B， 如果是持 L1A 签证进入美国，也就是作为高管，作为美国的高管，一般来说是比较容易，把它转化为 EB1C 类别的绿卡申请者。EB1C 的绿卡申请呢，它要求与 L1A 很类似，要求就是你要在这种跨国企业，在美国之外的分支工作1年以上，然后来美之后依旧进行管理工作。大部分的一般来说 L1A 呢，它是可以工作7年，所以7年之后呢，很多人就选择从 L1A 的这个签证身份转化申请为EB1A 的绿卡持有者，这样他们就可以继续留在美国。但是同时呢 L1B 呢，它不是管理的岗位，它是作为一名专业技能的工作人员。L1B 呢不能进行下一步的 EB1C 申请。
Okay, thanks, Maggie. Yeah, so I have next question. It's more about like the students in the US or the young people, the kids in the US. So like they are in the US studying now. So what is their path to get a work visa or eventually get a green card here? What is your experience or what's your suggestion for them to plan their future?
Very good. It's a very good question. Well, currently students in the US usually qualify for a work permit, okay, or what's called optional practical training, okay, that allows them to work in the US for up to a year after they graduate, all right? Now the work has to be related to their studies, okay? Because the work is considered to be part of their training, part of their education. So what a lot of students do is they come to the United States, they talk to their school about getting authorized to work, okay? in an area related to their studies. And then once they start working for a US company, okay, they ask the US company to sponsor them for an H1b visa. Now, the H1b visa is limited to 85,000 visas per year, okay? So they may not be selected right away. Only about half of the applications are selected. There's a lottery that takes place. And about half of the visas are selected randomly. Okay, at least for the last several years, there have been about twice as many applicants as there are visas available. Now that the economy is weaker, next year maybe there will be less applications, okay? And maybe everyone will get a H1B, will be selected for the H1B visa, okay? But that's usually the process, all right? If the H1B, if they're selected for the H1B and it's approved, okay, then they can work in the US for 6 years, all right? And during that process, they can ask their employer to sponsor them for the green card, usually in the Eb2 or Eb3 category. So that's the usual process.
所以这个问题呢是，如果是以学生身份来美读书之后想要留下来工作或者是申请绿卡，有哪些可行的计划和选择？它的答案呢就是首先作为学生身份，到学校之后呢，这个学生可以跟学校商讨说，我毕业之后想要留在美国，然后这个时候学生有一个可行的方案，就是叫做 OPT， 就是毕业之后的以学生身份进行工作。他毕业之后允许工作最高是1年，而工作的这个职位呢要与自己的所学领域相关。所以在毕业之后的1年工作当中，如果这名学生他找到了一个工作，然后他美国的这家雇主同意资助他进行工作签证的申请，最常见的呢就是 H1b 工作签证申请。H1b 呢每年是有85000个名额，然后这85000个名额是靠抽签来决定的。至少目前已经到今年为止吧，每年参加抽签的这个申请者要比实际的名额要超过它的2倍。这样说呢，因为它抽签是完全随机的，所以大概只有1半的人可以获得这个抽签。不过既然现在的这个经济下行，所以可能明年的申请者数量会减少，所以明年的竞争或许就没有这么激烈了。那假如说抽中了 H1B 签证之后呢，可以持有这个工作签证工作6年。一般来说，在这6年之内，如果雇主同意呢，雇主也可以资助这名工作者进行 Eb2 或者是 Eb3 的绿卡申请。所以一般来说，学生身份想要工作和绿卡申请一般是这样一条路径。
好的，谢谢 Maggie， 谢谢王律师。我们这里看到这个 chat 这里 Q&A 这里也收到一些问题，等一下我们会请 Maggie 律师做一个解答。我们今天的这个活动的话呢，会在大概11点15分左右结束。所以大家如果还有任何及时的问题，希望在今天这个部分这个直播的 session 当中得到解答的话，请大家把问题可以尽快发过来。也想跟大家说一下，大家现在在屏幕上看到的这个二维码的话，是我们公众号的这个二维码。如果大家平时有任何的这个法律问题的话，通常都可以在那里找到答案。当然，这个是一个法律信息分享的这个平台，所以的话，我们只做一个信息的分享，并不是这个法律的意见。所以我们现在可以回答一下我们在 chat 这里收到的这个问题。所以我会把它念给我们的 Matthew 律师。So Matthew, we received a question from the audience. I'll read the questions to you. So this audience is asking, as you mentioned earlier, there might be a ban on entering the U.S. for those who has L1 visa who got an L1 visa recently. So do you think it would be possible that the I-129 application for L1 applicant will be suspended? Like they won't be allowed to come into the U.S. at all?
Okay, I think I understand this question. So Trump can either ban immigrants from entering the United States, okay, he has a lot of power to do that. He has a lot of power when it comes to determining whether immigrants can enter the US, okay, with visas, okay, and he's done that before, okay, or he can actually prevent foreign workers or immigrants in the United States from extending their status here or from applying for the immigration benefit, okay? That's a separate thing, okay? So for most non-immigrant visas, you first file an I-129 with the Immigration Service, with the USCIS. And then once that's approved, okay, if you're outside the US, you have to apply for a visa at the consulate abroad and then come in, okay? So what this person is asking, will Trump suspend applications for immigration benefits with USCIS? I don't think so. I don't think it's much harder for him to do that, okay, to prevent people from applying to prevent people from applying for an immigration benefit. Now, if they're in the US, okay, they may be able to, I think it would be harder for him to stop them from applying to extend their status or change their status in the US using the I-129 application. Okay, now, now he might prevent them from entering the US for a temporary period of time or even a long period of time possibly, okay, once their I-129 gets approved, all right? So he's more likely to do that, okay? I think, for example, right now, people aren't entering the US at all, or very few people are entering because all the consulates are closed. The embassies are closed. They're not giving people new visas, okay? However, we are still applying we're still filing visa petitions, okay? And for people in the US, okay, who want to change status from F1, from student visa to, for example, H1b, okay, to work for a US company in the US, okay? That has not been suspended, okay? However, people who are abroad are not able to come in and we're not able to get student visas at the consulate right now. So I think Trump is probably more likely to prevent people from entering, new people from entering the United States with L visas, okay, for a certain period of time, even though I think it will be harder for him to prevent them from filing I-129 petitions. So we'll see what he does. I don't know. He may suspend the entry of people with L1A visas for 60 days or 90 days, okay, or maybe longer, okay, but we still may be able to apply for the immigration benefit so that when hopefully consulates open up again and he allows entry again, they can get a visa at the consulate and come in, okay? So we'll see. It all depends on what happens in November if he's reelected.
Okay, thanks, Matthew.
所以说我理解了您的这个问题是关于L1 Visa 它现在还能不能获得或者是延长。就像刚才我们在讲座当中提到过的，特朗普他的权利他是有权这样做，但是根据我们的分析呢，他更有可能是阻止不在美国境内的人进入美国。因为他之前也曾经这样做过，就是像之前的 travel ban，他就是会禁止某一些人进入美国，他是有这个权利的。所以假如说他一定要这样做的话，他或许可以短期的，比如说60天或者90天，或者是长期的禁止某一种签证持有者进入美国。但是在目前的这个情况下呢，我们还是认为它更多的是释放了一种，因为它现在要进行竞选，所以更多的是为了它的竞选造势，所以是释放了一种政治信号。 因为现在像我们刚才提到大使馆，不然也没有在营业，是没有办法得到一个新的签证来进入美国的。所以具体它最后的这个 executive order 里面到底会不会颁布这样一条法令，我们现在也很未知。但是如果对于已经在美国境内的人来看，目前来说是没有任何影响的。我们的预测也是，它应该很难阻止人们向移民局递交自己的申请。像我们现在也在为客户，就是人在美国的客户，帮助他们做 L 签证的延期申请和 H1b 的申请。因为在美国现在移民局还在正常接收这些工作签证的申请，现在来看是没有任何影响。所以具体下一步如何，就我们的分析是这样的，但具体下一步川普会怎么进行他下一步的操作呢？我们也要看11月份他会不会重新赢得大选。
Okay, 好的，谢谢 Maggie. So thank you, thanks Matthew again. I think that's the last question we are having for tonight. I believe we have more questions for you, but that's all for tonight. Let me just do a brief ending for the audience. Okay, 所以
Thank you, everyone.
Okay. Thanks, Matthew. 所以我们今天请 Matthew 律师、克洛杰律师主要分享的这个内容就到这里。我同事 Sam 的话，因为现在被迫变成了这个听众啊，只能在线上听，因为他这个可能 connection 连接有一些问题，但是我们非常还是感谢Sam 做了这一次咱们这个讲座的召集，然后也感谢王律师还有 Matthew 律师两位的这个分享。所以的话，其实像我觉得大家可能目前最关心的关于下一步移民的这个趋势政策的这样一个导向，像我们之前跟麦特律师有讨论过，很多时候其实总统的这些像我们知道他在 Twitter 上发的一些消息，或者是政策的一些个好像在透露风声说要怎么样，很多时候可能都是基于一种政治性的这个选择，所以的话具体最后能够落实到什么样的一个程度上，具体对咱们的客户，对咱们的这个跟客户的这个沟通是要怎么去进行，我觉得还是要非常需要去认真的去解读它确实落实的这个政策。所以这个政策的具体落实的话，大家当然一方面可以自己去关注这个相关的新闻，相关的这个政府的这个消息，当然另外一方面也可以通过我们作为一个在美国执业多年的这个律师事务所来获取这样相关的消息。现在最后一页上大家看到的是我们在纽约、加州，还有在中国这边的话，应该大家都有这个 Sam 的更加直接的这个联络方式，或者可以跟他取得联络。但是我们的话是这个在国内或者是在中国或者在美国，所有的这些信息平台都是非常畅通的，微信也好或者电话也好，都是非常愿意帮大家解决这些个大家需要的信息啊，或者解答这些难题。所以的话，关于就是政治下一步究竟会怎么样去走向，我们没有更多的这个能够去做预测的，但是我想，对于信息的一个客观分析和一个专业的分析，是我们以及大家可以为客户都同时做到的。那今天的话，我们这个讲座就基本上到这里结束。大家如果后续还有什么问题的话，可以通过我们的微信或者是电话或者是邮箱等各种方式跟我们取得联络。那我们今天纽约这边是晚上，大家那边是周五的这个中午时间，就感谢大家在各地加入了我们今天这个直播。我们的直播就今天到此结束，感谢大家参与。